I seen so much tragedy when I was in prison and growing up. I figured if I didn't open up my mouth, then I'd be a part of the injustice and the suffering that I experienced myself. So I want to do everything that I can so no other person will have to live the life that I've lived or suffered what I have suffered in my life. When I was in prison, I would see the young men coming in prison so full of excitement and so connected to the streets, which only lasts a few weeks until reality set in. And they realize they're not going home, and you can see them start losing their humanity. The friends that they had start disappearing. The girlfriends that they had start disappearing. And as years go by, they become more institutionalized and more conform to the ways of incarceration that they lose their humanity. They become a part of the system. And it's so sad to see. And I just wanted to do, if I could do it, that help somebody not have to experience what I experienced and what these other young people experience in the life that happens behind prisons. And they don't know because nobody teaches them. Nobody in prison hardly comes out and tell them that if you make a mistake, these are the consequences that you're going to face. You're not going to be happy. It's not like you see on TV when people in prison that last 30 minutes or an hour in the movie and they're back in society. You have to go by the rules in prison, rules that is different than the streets. You have to conform to the people in prison. If you don't, you die. There's no love, there's no compassion, there's no understanding. There's only a series of rules, a series of systems that have been in place before they enter. And when they enter, they have to fall in line like everybody else. Some of them become women or jailhouse women because when you're in prison so long, men even start looking like women to certain men. Prison is not a good place to be, and nobody should have to experience prison unless they deserve to be there. And most of these young people are there because nobody took the time with them to talk to them to try to change their life so they don't end up in prison. My desire to help people has always been a part of my life, and I just needed to know where I could fit in, how I could help. Any way that I could help people, I just want to help. And I realized that through my experience, that I could help people through my experience and to at least tell them about how I lived. And maybe I could help others not make the mistakes that I made because I've traveled the road that I see a lot of people was traveling and it wasn't a good thing. And during my incarceration, which is a great part of my life, I experienced other people sad. I spared not just sad people who have taken their life, people who have lost their humanities, families who don't even know what happened to their, family and how they died and how it's just such sadness because you're so cut off from reality, you're so cut off from the free world because the longer you're away, the more you are forgotten by society, even your family a lot. And it's just so sad when you're incarcerated. And what people fail to realize is that there's a lot of sadistic guards that work inside. Most, not all of them, but a majority of sadists, these are the jobs that they apply for because they're hidden from society. And they can get away because the free world do not care. Just like we hear about the COVID-19 that's going around in the world, is anybody really doing any kind of investigation on what's happening inside the prison system? I understand how healthcare there. I wrote a letter. I was a prison activist as well. And one of my letters I wrote went around the world. And it was about the injustices and the maltreatment of prisoners inside the federal correctional system. So many people die in the prison system that is just sad. There's no recourse. Now, in the state prison system, it's a little different because your family has more connections to you. But the federal system is not like that. The only information they will give is to your wife or your husband. Your mother don't really have any rights to you. Your children don't have any rights to you. And you have to go through a lot of procedures just for your wife to get certain information for you. They don't have to tell your family nothing. It's like being in a whole new different world. And it's going to be like that for a lot of these young people today with the violence that's happening now because the federal government under the ATF is going to be involved in the guns. Now, when you get a gun case in the state, you might do 2 or 3 years. But in the federal system, you can get life. They will charge you for every bullet in the gun. And regular robbery in the streets here, you get a couple years, 10 years. In the federal system, if they give you the Hobbs Act or interfering with commerce, you're looking at anywhere from 20, 30, 40 years. And you have to, in the federal system, you have to do 90% of the time that they give you. No big time cuts, no big, you work your way out. It is a system that nobody in their right mind would ever want to enter, because not every day do people get out of the federal system. You know, you'll meet people all day long in every state and every city who gets out of the county jail, who might have got out of their prison. But ask yourself, how many persons that you know have gotten out of the federal system? Everybody know where the police station at in their cities. Everybody know where the sheriff's station. Ask people, do they know where the FBI at in their city? Or where they know ATF in their city? Or Homeland Security in their city? They're in every city. But the average person don't know until they're arrested. And once you're arrested, it's quiet then. You won't find cameras in the courtroom. Federal systems do not allow cameras in the courtroom. Our parents came from the South. And when they came from the South into South Central Los Angeles, they bought homes. So it was a white flight. So a lot of the whites left and moved to the suburban areas and stuff. So most of the people that I grew up with are people that lived in their homes. So by growing up in the community, you develop a love for your community. When you walk down the street, you see people that you know, from kids as you're growing up. The junior high I went to, and the elementary, so all my brothers and sisters went there, and all their friends went there. Some of my homeboys' daughters and grandkids go to the same schools that we went to. So we had a different type of neighborhood thing because we didn't bounce around like they do in Albany. Albany is a city now with urban area people, or let's just say people of color, are mostly renters, mostly Section 8. So they bounce around a whole lot, so they never get the sense of community, pride, or love, because you're here on this block maybe 2 years. Next year you're living on the south end. The next year you're moving here. The next year you're having here. Albany has potential because it is a small city. You should not have big city problems in a small city like Albany. You have one high school in Albany, but you have a lot of universities. There should be a stepping stone from grammar school, middle school, high school, into college, because you have more colleges than you do the high school. You shouldn't have the youth of Albany being inspired by cities like Los Angeles, Chicago, Brooklyn, Baltimore. They should be inspired by higher education because this is the capital. This is where it all happens. New York, quiet as kept, is the capital of the world. We have the United Nations down there, but the power structure of New York is here in Albany. So it should be no problems that we have here with our youth. It should not be such a high dropout area. It should not be a high, pregnancy rate by our youth women. When we have these kind of problems, then it don't become systematic, it becomes parenting. It becomes the local so-called leaders and community leaders who are not talking to the people, who are not standing up to what's going on in their communities. You should not have babies getting shot. Small as Albany is, everybody can tell you they call it Smallbany. Everybody knows everybody. And when I speak about Albany, I'm speaking about Troy, I'm speaking about Schenectady, I'm speaking about Cohoes, I'm speaking about Saratoga. These areas are small and they connect. The leaders in all, we had one leader who was a friend of mine, he left out of Troy, Reverend Bako, who was very active in the community. When he was around, violence amongst each of the people there had went down. He left, he went to the Carolinas, and violence started going up. He fed the people, he taught the children, he had their respect. Any leader who do not lead in a positive direction is not a leader. We too quick in Albany to appoint people as leaders who have no inclination or no empathy about the people that they lead. They're just getting a paycheck. You might even give them a award or two. When I first came to Albany, they had a gang expert who didn't know nothing about gangs. I am a gang expert. I say I'm a gang expert because I've dealt with gangs, white gangs, Spanish gangs, Oriental gangs, from all over. In the federal system, you have a lot of the leaderships. And I was able to connect to them because of who I was. And it's sad. Even John Gotti, when you hear how, it was sad to see how he wasted away. It's sad to see when a man is lost his humanity, when his manhood is not there. It's become a ghost of human beings. But Albany's youth do not know this here. They think it's a fact. They'll talk about prisons and jails like they should be about the colleges that they go to. They wear going to jail as a badge of honor. Who wants to go to jail? They don't know. And the people who go do not tell them. This is why part of the program that I'm trying to initiate here in Albany is that there be a mentorship program that will also connect to the people in prison who can tell the youngsters what's going on. Not to scare straight, but to write them. We do never keep in touch with the people who go to prison. They go to prison, we forget about them. Then when they come out, we tell them to fit back into our society. That's not good. They don't know what's going on. They just out here again, and when you don't have nothing to look for, if you have nothing to come back to, you're going to go right back to what you did before you came. And if you always do what you always did, you will always get what you always got. And a cycle continues. Now, this youngster, he goes, his child is out there. So it becomes a system. Oh, I was in jail with your father. Oh, he was a good, solid man. Oh, that's a good guy. How can somebody be good when they're doing bad? How do you respect people of violence? I could never understand that in Los Angeles or Albany. The most respected person is the most violent. You get a person who's kind and help everybody, they look at him as weak. But you get somebody who is a brutal person who know how to hurt people and who have hurt people, they will respect them as though they're the best people in the world. Troy is a good city. It's a lot of historic, but where are the leaders? And it's not just black leaders. It's white leaders as well. When you see what's happening with your neighbors in this community and you see that they have poor leadership, it is your moral responsibility to reach out and to help what you can. The mentorship program must cross the racial line. We cannot let race divide us. And a lot of the white leaders have sit back and let these black people and other races say they are the leaders when they see the conditions of the people and they do not stand up and say nothing. And that is just as wrong as if they're wrong themselves, because they have a moral responsibility to stand up when they see somebody is not doing what they're supposed to do, and when you see the children are getting killed. I think when I was in prison, I had a homeboy named Dreamer. Now, Dreamer, he liked to cut corners and stuff. And in the federal system, you have stamps as the currency, so you change stamps for money. And I had loaned Dreamer some stamps, and I needed my stamps to write, so when I go to his cell, he was dying. He'd swallowed some drugs that opened up in the system, and he was going through where he was finna die. So everybody's mad, just let him die. I said, no, no. So I made sure the guards take him, and they pumped his stomach and everything, and they saved him. That he had died, like they say, twice, right? So after that, me and Jimmy became friends and stuff. He continued doing that. And he got out of prison. And this was happening when I was in Florence. Okay, the next time I seen Dreamer when I was in a place called Victorville. And he had came in on a violation. And when he came in on a violation, he showed me pictures of his daughter. And when I seen the daughter that looked just like him, I could do nothing but cry. Because it made me feel if I didn't do nothing good in this world, this little girl would not be living. A lot of the activists, as far as the young people here in Albany, are not young people from Albany. And for social media, it's very biased because they only show what they want you to see. They do not, it's mostly centered around left, and it's really centered around Democrats. They're not the right and the conservative base. The media, social media, do not cover it. They do not cover it. So it's one-sided. And everybody think it's fair because most of the people that think it's fair is because they're giving them what they want to know. They feed what is there, but they're not feeding everything. You hear all about Biden and, this here, But none of the black conservatives ever get any kind of airplay. They don't want them to exist. They don't want people to know that it's a lot of blacks in America do not like Black Lives Matter and that they believe that they're going against everything. Some people in the streets are shunning them away. Don't come here. They're speaking against them. Just when they had a march not too long ago down in the street about the Asian, you had Black Lives Matter talking about stop the violence against Asian, but days before that, like 6 blacks that got killed, and they didn't open their mouth. So there's a thing going on with Black Lives Matter that, that narrative is going to change, and sooner or later it's going to pick up, and it's going to change, and what people seeing them as one way, they're going to start seeing them another way, because the violence in Albany, Troy, Schenectady, it's already been predicted that it's going to increase. It's not going to go down. This is why a lot of cities have their own little task force and all these little programs, because they even know it's going to happen. It's sad that because this summer, defunding the police are scared to even say anything, scared to even pick up a youngster, So, and with the cash bail, they're getting out doing the same thing. It was one rally I went to, a woman was shouting because one guy, her son was testifying against him, but the guy get out of jail and killed 2 of her sons. And a lot of, Good things come, but bad people make bad things. Like I'm with cash bail. I think people need it. You're innocent until proven guilty. But then you have people who get out and commit more acts. What do you do with that? You have to change it and have to make the system a little bit better instead of just throwing them out. Marijuana. I come from a culture where everybody's smoking. Preachers smoking, police smoking, judges smoking. But it does have an effect on the way people think. We know gun sales didn't been up, which is bad. We know they even have a situation where you can write and get these ghost guns. I don't know how to go about getting them, but these young people know how to do everything on social media. They get them. Oh, everyone has a gun almost. And that's bad. It used to be a time where gangs would kill each other and solve their problem, whatever. You finding 2 young ladies that got killed in Albany. One was shot in the back. What programs could have helped that? What programs could help a culture of violence? This is what the cities don't understand. They won't come, none of the people in these communities will come out when somebody killed each other, but they will come out when the police shoot somebody. Everybody come out, but won't even come out when their baby's getting killed. So the problem is going to still be there because they hate the police. So how are you going to stop the violence if you don't stop it with yourself, if you're not going to use the police? And a lot of people don't want to come out, don't have the courage. When you find the leader who speak out against the black on black violence, despite all the rest of the leaders, all the other, clever words and clever this here, once you find that one person or that one group to speak out against the black on black violence, that black on black abortion, which is the #1 killer in the world, black women having abortions. When you find that leader come out to speak out and talk about Black Lives Matter, this is just on the black narrative, then you found the real leader. When you find the person to come out and speak about educating the kids and making sure when they go to school they're getting a proper education, and when they're not getting a proper education, you demand to protest at school because the kids are not coming out of there with the education that the taxpayers spend, then you have found that leader. When you find stores that have the propensity to have that element hang out there to sell drug paraphernalia, cheap beer, where it's a lot of problems. When you find the leader or person to speak out against a store that perpetuate violence and support and condones it, then you have found that leader. But you're not going to find a leader who's in a church with the doors are closed. I've spoken at every church here in Albany, except 2. And I went and tried to get every church here in Albany to adopt as a surrogate family either one young man, one young lady, a senior citizen, or a prisoner. I figure if each church was to adopt one person, that they could alleviate a lot of the problems that we have here in Albany. Oh, the churches, yes, that sounds like a good idea. We're with it. But do they care? No. They're concerned about money. They're not even teaching out of the Bible no more. I'm in touch with a lot of state senators and people like this here, and they understand too, right? But nobody want to cross the lines. Everybody want the appointed leaders, the people that's been here. Don't want to make that, but you have to stand up because children are dying. It's not like the place said. Now, Albany, when I first got here, they used to have, in Troy, they used to have what they call community guns, where they'll place a gun there and all the bad, tough guys will know that the gun is under the porch, and if they got problems, they'll get the gun and shoot it. But now they're doing drive-by shootings. And when any city or community develop into drive-by shootings, you're going to get a lot of killing, and you're going to get a lot of children who is dying. But the media is not covering it. The woman that was shot on Central Avenue couple months ago. She was shot 30 times. The young man that they found, I think was on Quail, who was in his car killed, he was shot 17 times. The media didn't cover this here.
How did you get the information?
I have contacts in the streets. I have contacts in City Hall. A lot of the leaders of a lot of gangs, I raised them, right? And these were friends of mine. See, in the gang activity, it was dangerous. It wasn't like people say the police played a part in it too. They would kidnap us, drop us off in other neighborhoods, get on the bullhorn, say we got one, and drive away. But every time they dropped somebody from a neighborhood, in my neighborhood, when I was there, I made sure they get home safe. It was my time to talk to them. And this is where a lot of my friends come from, this whole spectrum of the gangs. In 1979, we had the long table where we was trying to bring gang activity. And these are not just minor players. These are people that created the gang thing. One of my best friends is Tookie Williams. And it still haunts me today that, he was executed, and his last meal was oatmeal, But Tookie was a leader. He was a leader, but didn't know how to lead the underlings. So when the war really started, Took was out of it. He didn't have it. Raymond, now he was another leader of the Crips. He was a bull. He was in the fighting. Then you had a lot of other people. So when the war started, a lot of these people just simmered out. I had teachers that was Black Panthers. When Huey Newton was arrested for murder back in the day, I was, even my shop teacher used to, because I was in the print shop, would print up there, Huey, we got to free Huey. Huey must be free, and he'd give me a whole lot of them and out there with it, free Huey, Huey must be free. My mother, she was living there. She said, what you doing, boy? I said, Huey got to be free, Mama. Huey got to be free, And my mother, she wasn't an activist, but she believed in the future. So she allowed me to learn. She allowed me to be me. I was very close to my mother. I wasn't as close to my father like I was to my mother. And because my mother seen the energy that I had, And my father was something too. He was very smart. Very smart. And my aunties, all of them are smart. That's why I say it's no excuse nowadays that these youngsters trying to put the racial narrative, because when my mother lived when she was 39, but she had already owned her own house. The same house I grew up in, with all us children. My daddy was something, he was going through some trouble too, He was going through trouble because he was never the same after he lost my mother. It took me a lot of years to understand what he was going through. And his last, 20 years, we became close, But he raised all his children the best he could by himself, And that takes a lot. When you see a lot of these men today have one child and still running the streets and not doing it. My father raised all his children himself, and not one of us, except me, because I play hooky, not one of my brothers or sisters ever missed a day of school. You couldn't be sick. You're sick on when it's time for you to go play, but when it's time to go to school, that's what you do. He didn't know how to do a lot of things because he worked. He just was a worker. He just worked, But my grandmother, which is his mother, he was the only child. She started her own business by Madam C.J. Walker that started a little program for young Black women to start their own beauty shop thing. So she had my father when she was 15. So she started her own business, bought her own home, and raised him, like an American thing. He was a Boy Scout like I was a Boy Scout, And when the war came, he had a decision to make. Should he go to college or should he go there? But he wanted to go to college because he was looking at the time they was giving home loans or whatever, So he went to the military. He was in Korea.
Korea, yeah, you're younger.
And so when he get out the army, he met my mother in the same neighborhood who just moved there with her sisters. And they decided they was going to buy a house in the neighborhood one day, and that rest is history. My mother, she's from Mobile, Alabama. Her grandmother, Atias and Batias, they both died in a buggy accident struck by lightning. And they was cheated out of land. They had a lot of land and they was cheated out of it. So my grandmother's mother raised my grandmother to always get land. So my grandmother raised her daughters and sons to get land. So they became into real estate, So my Aunt Rose, she moved out to LA first after she got out of college. And as the white flight was happening out of LA, she was buying up the homes like crazy. So when she had enough of them, made enough money, every one of her sisters and brothers that came in there, she gave them loans to buy homes. So she became the bank of her brothers and sisters. So that's how they were. When we was kids, we was always, Monopoly was the game, because everybody was, And my auntie, she died about 10 years ago, and she was very, very wealthy. Out of all my first cousins and everybody, I'm probably the most unwealthy. But every one of those are millionaires. Every one of them multimillionaires. And so it's no excuse. On my father's side, it was my great-grandmother. She was just a regular grandmother. She worked hard. She partied and did a lot of stuff here, but she raised her kids to be smart. Education was always important, so it wasn't where you slack and didn't do it. She raised my father to be a gentleman. So my father was always a gentleman. He was wearing suits going to school. And he tried to make me do that when we was in LA, and I didn't like that because he was trying to do that. But he was just a hard-working man.
What part of the South was his family from?
New Orleans. And my grandmother knew a lot of people, my father knew a lot of the people, Louis Armstrong. She went to her church, was Memorial's Baptist Church, and what's her name? Mahalia Jackson come out of her church. My father know Fats Domino, they was very close, He named us my brother Ken, that was his nickname, Fat Man, because of Fats Domino. So my family was, When I go back to Los Angeles, I look at the neighborhoods who benefited out of the riots, and I see what kind of leadership that they had in their communities too, which I knew it was going to be like that because I understood the kind of leaders that they had in these community. And I seen the other parts of the community that was tore up, and I figured they would be there because a lot of people benefited out of the riots. I participated in the riots. I was sad, and it was a time of no law and justice. And it was a time that Crips and Bloods were at peace with each other. There wasn't fighting. But it was a bigger picture that was in store for them, and that was the crack law. They knew what was happening because they was building the prisons. When I first went to the federal system, it wasn't as big as it is today. It then got so big. And they've been letting a lot of people out, but they're finna reinitiate a lot of people in there. They don't build these kind of prisons just to stay empty. And they're gonna fill them up with a lot of these gun cases because a lot of the crack law people are coming home now. No, I don't feel safe. I will never feel safe in this world because I've seen the monster of men. You know, when people look at King Kong and Godzilla, I know what men can do. And men prey on innocence, they prey on people. And I can never be safe because I've been around those monsters. And as long as men live, as long as women live, I will never be safe. I will always watch them because violence has a tendency to just come up unexpectedly. And if you've seen some of the things that I see, you probably wouldn't feel safe neither in this world. Because usually when you be confronted with those kind of situations, you are always alone. And it's so frightening. It's something that you get when it's there. I mean, I done been in knife fights. I done wrestled over guns. I done been in shootouts. I done been in situations. I done seen the after effect of violence. I done smelt the after, violence. So I've lived a world that's been very violent, very, very violent. And I hope nobody has to live that kind of life. I don't know how many people done cried on their shoulders, and I don't know how many people that, seen things that just change them. But it's one thing that I would never be able to get out of my mind. And it's one of the things that led me to be an activist as well. It's the scream that a mother has when she first learned that a child has been murdered. It's something that pierces your heart. Men has a different one, but a woman, when they finally find out that the child has been murdered. And the war in South Central, when my brother Ken was killed, it took a couple of weeks for him to be buried because he was 19. They had a funeral for 18, 17, 16, 15, 14, and he was the 19th one. And it just took a while to bury. It was so many funerals. And I probably would never go to a funeral no more. Last funeral I told myself I'd go to would be my father. When I die, I don't want a funeral. I don't want people to glorify me. I don't want people to say nothing because I have not been the best person in the world myself. I've been a survivor. And if I remember for anything, is I did try to help people the best that I could. And it wasn't a day that, I didn't try to do something to make life better for somebody else. I mean, I spent 19 years in prison. I didn't come out here and, immediately try to get in this program to say this here. For everything that I've been doing and trying to do is because of what I feel for humanity. I went to some of these churches. I mean, the mornings be so cold, right? One church I went to, I was so glad that everybody hold hands, right? My hands were so frozen. I didn't want to let go of the hands. And I talk to the preachers and I tell them, why do you guys have your door closed? This one warmed up a little bit. You have such beautiful singers. Why are the doors closed? When I go back to Los Angeles, I look at the neighborhoods who benefited out of the riots, and I see what kind of leadership that they had in their communities too, which I knew it was going to be like that because I understood the kind of leaders that they had in these community. And I seen the other parts of the community that was tore up, and I figured they would be there because a lot of people benefited out of the riots. I participated in the riots. I was sad, and it was a time of no law and justice. And it was a time that Crips and Bloods were at peace with each other. They wasn't fighting. But it was a bigger picture that was in store for them, and that was the crack law. They knew what was happening because they was building the prisons. When I first went to the federal system, it wasn't as big as it is today. It then got so big. And they've been letting a lot of people out, but they're going to reinitiate a lot of people in there. They don't build these kind of prisons just to stay empty. And they're going to fill them up with a lot of these gun cases because a lot of the crack law people are coming home now. All of the Cubans that was in the Marietta boat lift back in the day, they're gone. So they're going to fill the void now. It's going to probably be a lot of people crossing the border, but they're going to be in there. The system is so messed up now, and it's so big, and it's so, you got to even buy toilet paper in there. And you know why it's not a lot of whites in prison?
They have the money to get bail.
It's not a lot of whites in prison because they don't do the crimes that everybody do at the magnitude. See, everybody tried to make it look like they're not telling the truth. If whites used to be the majority in prison during the 50s, early 60s and 40s, they was the majority because they committed more crimes. Blacks commit more crimes. And they blame the system of being racist because a lot of them get caught and go to jail. Like I try to speak the truth, that a lot of my problems, I had a choice. I'm a product of my environment, but I had a choice. Out of my neighborhood, with the block that I grew up on, there was success. We have lawyers, we have doctors, we have professional sports, we have all of that. But I took another road. I was just got swept up. Had I followed the same path and not end up in the streets by meeting the wrong types of people and doing like that, my life would have probably been different. But then again, I probably still would have had a suffering. I think the best thing that happened in my life is that I did go to prison. When I go to Los Angeles now, right? I am thankful that I went to prison because if I didn't go to prison, I would have probably been caught up in the drugs. I'd have probably been caught up in the alcohol. I'd have probably been caught up in taking every type of medication that they was giving to people out there because it seemed like they didn't took their mind because everybody's homeless and talking to the moon and the sunlight. And I wouldn't be able to be me. I learned. Prison to me was a school. I survived. A lot of people didn't survive. So it used to hurt me when I was in prison and thinking what everybody was out there doing and I could have did this in life and I wanted to do that there. But now when I see, I'm thinking forward. When I just come out to LA, it was because the friends wanted me to come out there. They wanted to show me their success, And this trip to Los Angeles was a little different than all the other trips I went to. One of my friends, he picked me up at the airport in a Bentley, and I never been to Calabasas. So it wasn't really Los Angeles. And up where he lived at, oh my God, I never seen so much wealth and so much in my life. And I helped him. I knew we knew each other on the streets and everything, but in prison I taught him how to read and write. And he remembered that. So over the years, he found me. And it was amazing. Then another one of my friends, he owns a popular restaurant in Atlanta. He's building one in Los Angeles. No, in Santa Monica, and got 3 more after this one. And he already bought the property. He's going to own 3 more. So I know a lot of people. And they understand the kind of work that I do. It was never money with me. If I was been money, I'd have been a crook like everybody else. I did my things there. When I got caught up in the federal system, that was some emotional stuff that I shouldn't have never been in the first place. When I got caught up, it's because I felt betrayed. I was betrayed by someone that I loved, with an enemy of mine. And I just wanted to get out of town because I feel if this person could betray me like this here, who can I trust? I have to get away so I can think. As long as I can get somewhere where I can think, I will be all right. Some paper, some handwritten, toilet paper thing, anything I can get it in there. Now I was in Beaumont, Texas. Now that's a bad place down there. Hurricanes and oh my God. And Roz started seeing the injustice. She, during Hurricane Rita, they told everybody in the media that they evacuated the prisons. But they didn't. We were still there. We had no water. They would fly water in. And instead of cutting the waters off in our cells, they left the water on and gave us 2 trash bags when they knew the hurricane was coming. One trash can was for to flush the toilet, and the other trash bag was to fill your water up so you can have some water to drink. Warm, no good tasting water. A lot of people's bags busted. During the course of that, I ran out of water, and like a lot of other people did. So I drank the water, and I almost died. And had to get a blood transfusion and everything. Though, like that, I don't speak to those people. They're crazy, you know. I just hope I never have to run across and get any, because a lot of these youngsters have issues, and I have issues too when it comes down to surviving. I am a survivor, you know. Remember one time I was in Old Folsom prison.
Yeah.
Is that in there?
It sure is. You were in twice.
When I tried to steal a sack lunch. And
That's right. It's in the book.
the average person would have got shot, but I grabbed a guard to protect, and that was frightening.
Street smarts.
You have to think. You have to think. You have to think. And you probably read there when I crossed over from being a boy to a man in there too.
Oh, I read that.
Yeah. And that was not a good experience.
No.
How would you have
You're
dealt
haunted.
with it?
You're haunted. Yeah.
How would you have dealt with it?
I try so hard to imagine, and I'm thinking, I like to think I'd be like you, because I think that you say you made some bad choices, but you're also very strong.
Friendships are more valuable in this world than money. A lot of people think it's, oh, I have all the money, but friendships, you know. A lot of close calls I had because people let me know certain things are happening, you know. But friendships are gold. During my 19 years in prison, it was not like a lot of prisoners now. No, I had people that was always concerned, always writing, always. So I experienced a little bit differently because I connected with people through my writings. So the guards treated me, but if they didn't, because I was a prison activist, they'll ship me to this place, put me on this. They only went a certain way, but in the federal system, if they can't control you, they got a place in Springfield, Missouri, where they take you and will give you a lobotomy and say, well, he's violent, we can't control him, and they would take the violent part of your brain away, and you never be the same. And I've seen that done. And the sad thing about it, nobody cares. And when they come get you off of the plane in Missouri, oh, them guys are some big, I've never seen people that big in my life. The whole plane gets quiet when they come take the patients off. And you'd be so happy when the plane take off. And the federal system got a lot of little small airports they go to. It don't be like at the Albany, no, they be in little hilly areas, little, fields out in the way where you don't know where they at.
I didn't know that.
When I left LA to go to Colorado, it was like 10 minutes out of LA and I wouldn't have never even thought it was an airport.
There it is.
The federal government and this is going to hurt these youngsters, and this is what I'm trying to help, because like the crack law, they didn't get a warning. All they knew that it was a law. Same way they did under 3 strikes in California. They passed the law, and a lot of people didn't pay attention. The next day, they caught 200 people. And the first person they got for stealing a slice of pizza. And Newsom, the governor out there in California, they just had a recall and they're trying to get him out of office. He's not really a real bad guy. He did a lot of things to help prisoners, like Como did too, And His other thing is not too good, you know. I don't know who's going to be the next governor. Maybe he might retain it. I don't think a Republican would be, because this is a Democratic state, you know. I was a good kid then. When I played hooky, I went to other elementary schools
Oh, did you?
to see how they lived. So,
That's not hooky.
right, it was like an adventure. I would go to other parks and playground because the world that I lived in, we did everything together. We shopped at the same stores. We ate at the same thing. Everything we did was together, and you get tired of them after a while, you know. The only breaks that we would have if we go visit our relatives during the summer, but everything else we did together. The same people in kindergarten was the same people in first, third, all the way up. So that would make gangs a little bit different, because when people start getting killed, it brought everybody in. So out here, it's like he's over here, he's over there, he's over there. So when the kids get killed, the mothers and the fathers is involved. Like, just say like a Spanish gang called the 18th Street. That's an old gang. That gang started like in 1899. So great grandmothers and grandfathers. So it's got a long history, you know. Then a lot of Spanish gangs come from the zoo suit riots and stuff with the sailors during the war. And they just, you know, so it's a lot of gangs out there. It's, you know.
Yeah.
Because I had people from the Black Panthers teach me.
Talk to her.
I had people from Black Liberation Army. I had people, different schools, different people that would teach me. I had a knack to learn. I had people from the Gray Panthers. I had people from SLA, a lot of political groups. Within every human being, there's a secret place of peace, purity, and unconditional love. In this secret place, we find the strength, comfort, and wisdom that we need at any time and during any need. This place within us is very special because as we grow in its awareness, we no longer battle with negative thoughts. The emotions that we give expression to convey our loving thoughts and peace-filled attitudes. And you have to always center on love. And that's the one thing, out of everything that I learned from my mother, is that. To always love, to always find something to love, because in this world, it's so much negativity. And if you don't have a foundation in love, if you don't try to love something, then this world will consume you. And that's one of the secrets that I have when I listen to anybody who calls themselves leaders or helping people. I watch and see if any time do they mention the word love. And if I don't hear it, sometimes the situation don't require it to be spoken at a time here. But sometimes during a conversation or doing something, love has to be mentioned. Sometimes, even when there's politicians running or whatever, they can campaign on this, but sooner or later, you have to hear the word, I have to hear the words love. Because if a person don't love, then life means nothing. Life has to resolve around love. Love has to be the core. Love for humanity, love for something. Love for nature, love for something. Love has to be there. And never, because if you don't love, you'll take everything in this life for granted. And I told myself I would never take nothing for granted in this world no more. You know, that's why I like plants and flowers and all this little stuff. And I take my walks. I don't even drive. I'm finna get a driver's license. But I like walking. I like walking. I like seeing the birds. I like spring. I used to like autumn best, but now spring is my favorite season because it's a season that everything just comes to life. And I like ocean. I like picking up rocks. I just like life in nature. I would never kill an animal. I've killed a lot of them in my days growing up because that's what we taught to do. Shoot birds and shoot rabbits and stuff like that there. But every life has its purpose, you know. And when you search yourself, you find out where you really stand in this world. Some people call themselves liberals, but are not liberals. Some people call themselves conservatives, but are not conservative. I'm a conservative with certain liberal beliefs. I believe in all life. I believe that everybody has a right to live freely, live without fear, and be free to learn. I don't believe in blame, where you blame people for your mistakes. You blame, try. And then if you try as hard as you can and you just still can't get through it, then there's the time when you start blaming. But until you try everything that you want to give in, you shouldn't blame nothing. You shouldn't give up and just say, that's it. Because in this world, it's hard. And a lot of people do not teach their children or teach each other that nothing in this world is fair. It wasn't designed to be fair. Even when we are born and conceived in our mother's womb, it's not fair. It's a lot of sperms that try to get to the egg, but only we made it there. It's not fair. Life is always a competition. It's always into something. But it's how we approach the world. It's how we live this world. But love has to be the center. It has to be the center because without love, it doesn't stand a chance. Without love, we live in narrative. We live in marginalization. We live in scrutiny. We live in racism. We live in prejudice. We live in violence. We live in everything. Everybody, all these liberals and all these people, not all of them, but a majority of them here in the capital regions, you find different churches right next door to each other, and somebody might be getting stabbed right outside there. You see people finna walk to a cliff and fall off, basically, and won't say nothing. We see a lot of young people getting on the bus, and I see it all the time. You hear the older blacks talking, oh, he should just pull his pants up. They got something to say about everything, but won't go over there and talk to the people. They won't go and try to do that, Some of these youngsters you can't talk to. If you try to talk to them, they get crazy on you, But you have to try somehow. Because if you don't try, they might not have had a father. Or their mother might not have been a mother. This is why the mentorship program meant so much to me to get initiated, because when you take somebody in and you nurture them, it's almost centered, almost like the AA and NA, which is a good program, because they take time where people can call when they need help and they hear the stories. So they have a sponsor. You don't have a sponsor in the streets with a person, Your homeboys tell him you got to go shoot this person because he stepped on your shoes. Who do you talk to with that? You can't get away because if you don't really want to do what they're trying to get you to do, so you do it, then you get caught. Now you done got caught. Now everything is in the mix now. Now you're in the system now. They don't want to care about the street world. Now they're going about what is written in the laws, the penal codes. And if it says this is what you get, this is what you get. People, the leaders right now has not even paying attention to the recent Supreme Court decision that young people can still get life. They upheld that decision. They should be telling these youngsters now, you commit these acts, you can get life in prison. You have fought this for years, and it made its way up to the Supreme Court. And now they denied it and upheld that, a young person can get life. And it's not because, they try to use, but they was, not mature enough at the time. But all that's over with now. When they get life now, they're going to get life and they're going to do it. And they're not paying attention. They're not telling them that under the Biden's gun control that they didn't put ATF involved in it. So what they're going to do is going to start locking a lot of these people up. None of these community leaders are talking about the violence. It's just the violence. But it's not going to continue because they're going to lock a lot of people up. And ACA, the American Congressional Association, and all these other people that make profit off of people being in prison, it's just crazy. People don't understand. Like a lot of, when you call to make reservations on planes and stuff, a lot of those reservations are being made out of certain women prisons. They're contracted. They don't find jobs out here when there are jobs available, but when they get in the federal system, everybody has to work. You're not just sitting, everybody has to work. And you get paid $5.25. If you don't work, you go into solitary. You don't have no privileges. You won't get visits. You ain't gonna probably get no visits anyway, because if you're in the federal thing, the only time you're gonna get visits if you're close by where you live. So you could be in New York, don't have any kind of U.S. penitentiaries. So the closest you'll be if you catch a federal case and go to the penitentiary in the federal will be Pennsylvania. If you're in Alaska, it'd be California. Hawaii and all these places have to come way over to the mainland to do their prison time because they don't have any federal, they have one medium over there in the Guam. But in other words, you have to come to the continental U.S. And that puts strain on your family, phone calls you don't get but so many minutes every month. And a lot of people lose. They're not going to let you go to a funeral. Now, the state might let you, but the federal's not. Healthcare, they got certain prisons that just deal with healthcare. If you got high blood pressure, you're diabetic, you have to go to a different type of prison because a lot of the prisons don't have the regular healthcare. It's bad in the federal system. And this is one system nobody really want to learn about. And if you learn about it, you're going to say, how do this exist? Because it's the federal government. Well, Black Lives Matter is not saying anything but with the police. That's the whole thing when police kill blacks. And they giving the impression to the world that that's the biggest problem with blacks. It's about the racism, the systematic racism. The biggest problem with blacks is blacks killing blacks. If you compare the number of blacks killing blacks to police killing blacks, it don't stand close. Here you had the demonstration, they all in front of the South End police station a couple of weeks ago because of what happened in Minnesota with Dante Wright. And they got in a situation where they camped out. They didn't camp out and do anything when the little boy, what was his name, to get killed in Troy? They didn't come out and ask the community to come together, let's stop this violence. They didn't come out even a couple of weeks ago. Somebody got killed last week, as a matter of fact. Another young lady. They ain't came out and said nothing. How can you say Black Lives Matter when you see black people getting killed by other blacks and you don't say nothing? I wasn't thinking, and sometimes I was thinking. Sometimes life throw you curveballs, and sometimes you can move on a course of life that you don't even know what you're doing, and you end up in there. Why did I do that? But it all sums as where I was supposed to be. I was where I was supposed to be. It took me a lot of years to understand that, doing not just my experience, but other people's experience of what they was going through. A lot of people was not strong. It's hard to understand when you see people get raped and how they try to put yourself in their mindset, you know. And a lot of times in juvenile, I didn't know a lot about a lot of things, but I knew how people felt. And I knew that they needed somebody to talk to when nobody else would talk to them. I've always been either the stranger, the outsider, or the person that was not even in the gang, even in my brothers and sisters. They did their thing, and I was always a little bit on my own. Even in the gang thing, I didn't trust nobody in it. I trusted them, but not trusting them when it came down to my life, because I knew what they was capable of doing, you know. And the only reason I felt that I survived it because of me. And when I mean that, I became a monster too. And of some monsters, you have to be the most vicious monsters for the other monsters to respect you. And that's the kind of world that you have to live in. And some things I'm not proud of myself. Remember, when I got into the gangs, I was just a Boy Scout. So everybody was looking at me just to be somebody they would take advantage of. When the first time a situation came, everybody was expecting me to fail. But after the situation, every one of them was scared of me. And I've never been the same, and I knew my world had changed. But that's life nobody has to live. I wish I could have connected more with my brothers and sisters and my cousins and a lot of the other. Wish I could have been just like them, but they just wasn't what I liked it. I liked what they was doing, but they just did them and I did me.
Well,
It's the
well,
mentorship family surrogate family program where they take one in the congregation, right? And that be their responsibility to teach them and to school them and to be there when they can call and just nurture them, take them into your embrace. Not just come today and go on tomorrow, but be in there like a family.
so be more like a family than meeting on Sunday and going about
Right,
your business.
right. To be there with them so they can call you, so you can help them, so you can talk to them. If every church just to take just one,
Gotcha.
just like it's a nursing home, an elderly person sitting home by themselves. If the church just take one, somebody pick them up and put them in the church activities, make sure, they have a family. They have somebody that concerns them. It'll make them feel better. It'll add to them. It won't take nothing away. It will make everything more beautiful. You got a prisoner who's in prison for committing a crime in whatever in this city, and you embrace that prisoner. And you have another young man who's making a mistake that this prisoner, they can connect to. I don't know if you remember the story of Hurricane. Reuben Carter was a boxer and stuff like that. And it was these people from Canada who would come down and buy houses and sell them and make them. It was a group of them. So they took a young boy. They went to their father and mother and told them, can we just have him raised? We're going to school him and everything. He had a brother in prison. So the mother said, yeah. So they took the young boy. They was white and the little guy was black. So they took him to the library to get some books and stuff like that. So he picked out Reuben's book, the 16th round, I think it was. So he wrote a book. He'd been there in New Jersey. So anyway, he ended up writing him. He wrote him back, and they started the communication. He went to see him, and he had all kind of movie stars. It was a famous case, So he had Ellis Bernstein, and it was a big thing about it. So the young man ended up becoming a lawyer. And these same people was the one instrumental in getting him out of prison. But just the connections, if you reach in the prison system, just like with Malcolm X, the Nation of Islam reached inside of prison, teaching him, and next thing he became the national spokesman, took it to a no level, you know. But if you just put people in prison in the right way, is one thing. If you let senior citizens rot away with the knowledge that they have, and you know they're there, and you don't care, how can you not care about people that's getting older in age and care about yourself? Because if you're fortunate enough, you're going to be that. And at least you can say, well, when I was young, I tried to do something so I wouldn't be in this position like I did try. If you never try, if you never concern yourself, everybody concerned about the young people, the middle age and stuff, but what about the senior citizens? Or what about them? They're human as well. They have something to contribute. A person in the nursing home might be 70, 80 years old or 90s, but he might have been a good carpenter. He has a world of knowledge. Don't write him off because he don't have the mobility to go here and there. A city must be like a tribe, not like a system where you just lock them away and put them, okay, this is where the old folks go. We're going to put some community cities for these young people to go. We're going to put, okay, if you're going to do something for the young people, what about the elderly? Why not connect everybody? Because each one has something to give.